Welcome to the Australian Business Executive Podcast, where we speak with Australia's most influential industry professionals on the business and economic development issues taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with all our content, including our magazines, podcasts and videos by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.
Rick Fenny is one of Australia's most successful career vets, having established a network of Western Australian metropolitan and regional vet clinics. He was a finalist in both the 2018 and 2019 Western Australian of the Year awards and has grown a business empire while ensuring WA's outback residents have access to quality veterinary services for their pets and livestock. He's a passionate advocate for WA tourism, owning a range of ventures in Western Australia, including the Matria Private Retreat and the award-winning Ocean Park Aquarium. His most recent endeavor is in television with the launch of his new series Desert Vet, and he joins us today. Rick, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take us through the Rick Fenny Group and the divisions that make up the overall business.
Well, we're mostly vet practices, and they've really evolved rather than being planned. It happened in a bit of a haphazard way. Started in the Pilbara, where I started my first vet practice in 1975. And then they sort of just followed me around. Whenever I've gone somewhere else to try something different, I've set up a vet practice and usually bought the property. That's been sort of one of the things I've done all the way along, always try to own the property. And I set up in Karratha. I built a vet hospital in Karratha in the late 70s, and then either started or took over other vet practices in the Pilbara at Headland, Newman, Tom Price, Exmouth. And then I thought, actually it was quite funny. I had a client say to me, if you're up here in the north, you must be a B-grade vet. So, why do you say that? So, if you're an A-grade vet, you'd be in the city. Okay, I'll start one in the city. So when started one in Vic Park in Perth in 1982, and then I suppose mid-80s I decided I'd go back to my hometown of Albany in the south of Western Australia where I'd grown up, and I thought, my kids are growing up a bit now. I'd love them to have the same childhood as I did growing up in that beautiful part of the world. So we moved to Albany and followed the same principle. I've found a very well located property on a corner in the middle of town and turned it into a vet clinic, and that was my first Albany one. And then I sort of started to learn how to run them hands off, because I had one in Perth and one in Karratha. So I thought, I think I know what to do here. We just find a way to run them at arm's length, and it sort of continued from then, and I really just indulged myself in doing what I wanted to do, and building up vet practices at the same time, and probably not doesn't make real good business sense, but just the way it worked out. And then I guess other interests followed me in the same way, with the same theme, indulging myself in stuff I liked, and it's devolved into having my love of the ocean and everything marine. I bought into an aquarium in Shark Bay, and then my son Ed had just graduated in marine science, so he came to work there, and it was about 12 or 13 years ago, and he follows that passion of mine. And then I've also always been involved somehow with farming. Always had farms in Albany, and my kids sort of grew up having a farm down there. And I found my younger son, Sam, he didn't want to be academic or even get a trade. He just wanted to be on the land. So we ended up buying a station in the Gascoyne, and he went there when he was 20 years of age and hasn't moved.
Right.
So that's been a bit of a thing.
Okay. The establishment and growth of your network of vet clinics was the first chapter of your success. What was the journey like in developing the growth of the business, and what do you think that you could have done, or what did you do differently that allowed them to succeed?
I guess, in a word, trust. I put my trust in having young vets who I empowered to run the businesses, run my business. And I did a few things that were a little bit adventurous at the time, a little bit different. I gave them a percentage of the turnover right from the word go. As soon as I thought that, they obviously had to be capable and wanting to do it, I said, look, you're running this practice for me. It's a percentage of my income, but it's 100% of yours. So if you do a really good job, the harder you work, the more you'll get. So those that had a bit of a business head on their shoulders certainly grabbed that opportunity with both hands, and that's almost in a way ensured they would be successful, because that person was dependent on his or her performance to make the practice turn over as much as possible and be as viable as possible, and at the same time that obviously helped me and gave me peace of mind.
One of the things I remember when we initially started talking as well is that you said there were a lot of areas that tended to be neglected in more regional areas. Yeah,
well, that's the way things have gone. The way the government's brought in fly in, fly out, and Western Australia's become more and more city-centred. And going back to that comment that client made all those years ago, in a way that is Western Australia. Everyone thinks that everything's bigger and brighter and everything in the city, and the regions have got neglected. And unfortunately, that trend's continued. I think the regions, despite all the posturing and noise, I think the regions have gone backwards. They've grown, but not at the rate that they should have grown. I think other states in Australia, you don't get that same philosophy. I think the big regional centres in the other eastern states seem to be going quite well, but I think it's a government thing as well as a attitude over here, and the governments really do need to spend more of their resources in the regions by actually sending their staff to live and work and set up their government departments in those different regions of the state.
Following on from that, I suppose this carries on with it. Our audience is primarily urban professionals, and issues related to regional animal care and livestock are things that don't normally tend to catch our attention. Could you sort of fill us in on what are the industry issues taking place out there at the moment?
The industries in the northwest, or
yes,
or you mean
well, across the state?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of mining sort of done up here, and there's a lot of potential for tourism, but most of the wealth of the north is driven by mining. There's obviously pastoral stations as well. Huge potential for tourism. It's hardly been scratched in this state, whereas in a state like Queensland, for example, the Barrier Reef's been a draw card for decades, whereas we got similar reef up here. It just hasn't really been exploited enough as far as tourism goes. But farming-wise is the other area that there's this huge divide between the city and the country, and the people generally in the city just don't know what goes on. And the big thing that they fail to realise is that farming generally is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult work, but you've also got to have all your ducks lined up. All the stars have got to be in alignment for whether it's pastoral or cropping or whatever. Everything has to be lined up, and there's about 10 things you've got to have in place. You've got to have a season. You've got to have a proper rainfall event. You've got to have a market for your product. Your prices have got to be at a high enough level to make it worthwhile. Selling your stock or putting a crop in. You've got to have your finance in place to borrow money. You've got to have helpful banks to carry you through the bad times as well as the good times. You've got to have a labour source. And when the mining boom was happening in Western Australia, that had a dreadful effect on other businesses, and especially farming operations, because people could earn ridiculous money being a stop-and-go guy at a mine site or whatever, or a cleaner. And so they'd say, well, why would I work hard on a farm, or why would I work in a business or vet practice when I can go and earn big dollars on the mines? And unfortunately, when the mining boom was all over, they were caught their pants down. Also with finance, the Aussie dollar got to be at a level to make it worthwhile for exporters to sell stuff overseas. The government's a big one too. The government's got to be helpful to farmers and to businesses in the regions, and also not only helpful, they've got to stop being interfering and throwing in more and more red tape. And it just red tape seems to grow and grow, which frustrates farming and business. Politics is a huge one. The politics of when the Gillard government just arbitrarily stopped live exports overnight, just on because she watched a TV program from Four Corners, which was very biased, and bang, we lost the export trade overnight. And there was just shocking political interference, and the repercussions are still there. And we're still seeing that in form of activists. These vegan activists are out there interfering in a big way in some of our best industries. And so I'm very passionate about it, and it's certainly a lot more can be done to help people in business, and particularly in farming.
As we touched on earlier, you've made a name for yourself outside of veterinary and agriculture and livestock issues. This includes a range of tourism ventures as well. Do you want to just take us through the other ventures that you're starting to get quite well known for?
Yeah, well, I guess I wanted to diversify, and I've actually diversified within the veterinary industry by having these different branch practices. Because I think I'd just go mad. I'd go crazy if I was stuck in the one practice doing the same thing day in, day out for the last nearly 50 years. So I've diversified within the vet practices by having having a group of little practices and building them up and getting into business. I've also dabbled in having my own drug supply company and my own locum agency to get supply of vets, and so I've played around within the industry. But then that wasn't enough, so I've sort of diversified outside that practice by with the tourism side of it, with Ocean Park, which is the aquarium in Shark Bay. That's run by my son Ed, the marine scientist. And would you believe we've diversified within that business as well? There's Ocean Park in Shark Bay is actually 10 businesses in one. We've got the obvious marine display where we've got about 200 odd animals on display for people and educate them about sharks and fish and all that sort of stuff. But we've also got a nice little cafe, restaurant, coffee shop there, and you can have a nice meal and buy merchandise. And it's a bookshop outlet for books about fish and history of the Northwest, etc. We've got a bar there, and it's quite nice there. But also we do four-wheel drive tours all around Shark Bay, up to the Cape Perrin and then over to Jakarta Island. And we've recently also bought a beautiful 40-foot boat, and we do dive tours. We take people, experienced divers, we'll take them out to mostly to the end of Jakarta Island and the most western part of Australia. It's Steep Point, and beautiful diving there. But people who aren't experienced divers, will teach them to dive if they want to. And those who just want to have a look, we will take them on what we call a marine safari, where they're likely to see dolphins and turtles and sharks and rays and dugongs up close, and whale sharks even. A lot of them around Shark Bay. So it's been a lot of fun doing that, diversifying within Ocean Park, and aquaculture, of course, too. We actually can grow fish there. But it's fabulous having the son involved in that. We've also bought a folly. My big folly was Maitreya, which is the most beautiful house in Australia, most beautiful property in Australia, I think. But it's got all the elements I love. It's not only beautiful property, because I've had a love affair with property all my career, and it was almost the Everest of all the property you could buy is to own a place like Maitreya, with an absolute ocean frontage of the Southern Ocean, and about 650 acres of farmland and bushland and heathland and a lot of creatures there. So it sleeps 16 people, but it does keep me a bit poor. So if someone wants to buy it, I'd actually, if they've got about 25 million, I'd let it go and move on to other things. But yeah, the holding costs are quite high. But yeah, it's the other two main tourism things we do, but so much potential to do more, certainly with our station, Carver Station, where my younger son is, diversified there with pastoral industry. We mostly grow goats, actually, pastoral goats, which usually looked on as feral animals, but they're fabulous meat, and we collect a lot of them. We've also got 25 k's of coastline there too, so it's a lot of potential for tourism. But wow, I just don't have enough years in me, I don't think, to do everything I want to do.
Fair enough. Now, leading on from that, you've been around for a while. What are some of the business lessons that you've learned, and how do you prefer to do business, with your partners?
Yeah, well, I guess the first step is to choose good parents. So if it's too late to choose your parents, try and be a good parent. So you've got all the correct values and like honesty and trust and persistence and empathy and truthfulness and all those things. I think that's a must. If you want to be in business, you've got to be ethical. You've got to be honest. Otherwise, people see right through you and you're out the door. And any advice for any budding entrepreneur is to take that on board well and truly. You've also got to take risks. Without taking a risk, you're not getting anywhere. You've got to have self-belief. But trust is a big one, I suppose. I do trust people, sometimes to my detriment, but I reckon I've got about a 99% pass mark by trusting people. 99% of the people I've trusted have given that trust back, returned it with interest. About 1% have said, "Oh, he's an idiot. He's trusted me. I'm going to stab him in the back." So that very small percentage of people have tried to take advantage of my open heart and trust and have stabbed me. I've got a great little saying for that. Because someone asked me once, what do you do if someone stabs you in the back, like a couple of people in the industry have done? I say, I turn around and watch them slowly die. I mean it, because if you do something dishonest or unethical or just downright wrong, you'll shrivel, you'll die, you'll never recover. I've seen people do it, not just in vet, like in the classic example is an employee who says, "Oh, gee, this guy's got a good business or a good practice. I think I'll set up in my own right," and they've set up down the road, and they have not succeeded because the world knows that they've basically done a treacherous act. And as I said, I've seen that in several businesses, and that person who does that usually just withers away, but it damages the people along the way. So that's why I'm very strong on it, that you really got to give people trust. If you trust, you'll get it back. Also, I guess one of the hallmark of my beliefs in business is that you've got to build your networks, build your support team, gather good people around you, people who know more than you. Obviously, you things like accountants and lawyers and suppliers and all those people that you need to make your business successful. You've got to develop that network, and once you've done that, you've got a partnership. It's all about partnership, I guess. You've got a partnership for the life of your business, and I've got some of my partnerships that go back 40, 50 years, and we've been helping each other all that time, and a lot of it's done on a handshake, on trust, and that's the best way. That's the Aussie way to do it.
Now, has any of that led into what you're doing now? I mean, you've got a new television show in production called Desert Vet, which features you as the main character. What's all this about? Yeah,
well, it's almost again a logical culmination of my career is to get into the TV show, because it's got all the elements of stuff that I've always done and always loved, and I've got the experience in. It's got obviously vet practices. It's got animals, all sorts of animals. It's got wildlife. It's got beauty and the scenery of Western Australia and the regions. But most of all, it's got the family. I've got both, at this stage, my son Ed, the marine scientist, who's very much involved with it, and my daughter Louisa, who's also a vet, she's involved with it. And we've just finished filming for our new series, which is a four episode series. We're editing it at the moment. Before that, we had a pilot, just a one-off pilot that was so successful that we were asked to do a series. So the series is four episodes, and it's been sold to UK TV and also to Europe. It's going to be shown on Channel 9 later in the year, probably on 7:30 on a Friday night, on prime time viewing on the main channel, and probably around August, September. We've only just finished filming, and we're halfway through editing at the moment, so we'll let you know when it's going to happen. But it's certainly been an absolute highlight, and it's a real legacy. That's what I love about it. It's something I've left behind. And if I dropped off the perch tomorrow, the Desert Vet should continue in the hands of the children. I've got 8 children and 13 grandchildren, and I've already got 2 of the children are well and truly involved with Desert Vet. But there's the potential for all the others to be involved too. So I think it's got a huge life. A little bit like what Steve Irwin and his family did, but this will go on for a long, long time.
What are you hoping to achieve through the show? What is its primary aim?
I guess we're highlighting the beauty of Western Australia. We're giving tourism an absolute boost here, to show people how wonderful it is to visit, especially the Shark Bay area and the Pilbara area and everywhere in between. And there's some spectacular scenery, swimming with wild sharks and tagging them, and flying over desert country, chasing camels, and it really is lovely. So I know it's going to help Western Australia, but particularly the regions, because I'm a great supporter of the regions of the state. And they do need that little bit of help. Also, I'll be able to get a few other messages across to help any supporters. Like I certainly will in a future episode. Will be giving my opinion and highlighting how stations are beautifully run, and how live export is very, very important for the economy of this state and this country. Things like that. It's a vehicle for all sorts of benefits.
Okay. You seem to be able to find success in unrelated industries. What other areas of business are you interested in pursuing in future?
I guess I'd like to diversify even more within what I'm doing. And a classic one is on our station with this beautiful organic goat and sheep meat that's produced off the country with saltbush, and we'd like to actually promote it as its own brand, like a Carbler Station saltbush goat and Carbler Station saltbush organic lamb. So that sort of thing, and certainly do more within the aquarium as well at Ocean Park, and I guess I'd love to have the money. I'd be building more eco tents. We're trying to get them off the ground at Shark Bay at the moment, but unfortunately it's hard to get money at the moment, so that's why I reluctantly let Matrona go, so I can put that money back into these other areas.
Fair enough. Look, that wraps up our conversation for today. Before we finish, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, yeah, I'd like to tell you that my book's finished.
Okay.
But it's not. It sort of is. I've finished the text, but I've just got to get it published and printed and out there. It's very close, and it's basically 4 books about my life. It's called Red Dog Vet because that was what I was sort of known as the vet for the famous Red Dog. So I realised that actually I'd had 4 very important red dogs in the first 4 years of my life. I had a dog when I was growing up as a kid in Albany, and so that's the basis of book 1, is about that dog. That covers my life from my birth right through till I went off to university in Queensland. And then the second book is that era when I was in Queensland with my second dog. And then the third book is the era in the Kimberley area of Western Australia. And then the fourth one is about Red Dog himself in the Pilbara. So hopefully the first one will be out about the same time as when our Desert Vet series hits the TV screens later this year.
Well, look, I mean, it all sounds excellent, and I appreciate your time today, Rick.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been a production of the Australian Business Executive, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Australian Business Executive, including our magazines, podcasts and videos, by visiting www.theabe.com.au and clicking on subscribe.